Good afternoon. My name is Dan Wolgamott, and I am the state representative from District 14B and the Speaker Pro Tem of the Minnesota House of Representatives. And we are here today because the Minnesota House of Representatives will be voting on House File 1200, which is a bill to ban private prisons in the state of Minnesota. Criminal justice is a core responsibility of our state government. It should be done by those who are accountable to the public, not who are incentivized by profits. Public workers should be the ones protecting public safety. Unfortunately, private prisons have a troubling record of cutting corners in order to maximize their profits. This jeopardizes public safety. It leads to the following disturbing outcomes: higher numbers of prison rapes, higher rates of assaults on both staff and inmates, worms found in food served to inmates, lack of medical care for inmates, lower pay and benefits for staff, which leads to lower quality of work, less training for staff, staffing levels so low that prison gangs are out of control and sometimes even in control of the correctional facilities. Ultimately, the real crux that jeopardizes broader public safety in our communities is that private prisons lead to higher rates of recidivism because they don't adequately fund rehabilitation programs such as treatment for drug abuse or mental illness. Private prisons have perverse incentives. Recidivism is good for their bottom line. More crime means more profit, and public safety takes a back seat to profit. Private prisons are not part of the solution to reducing crime. They're part of the problem, and it's time that we ban them here in the state of Minnesota.
All right, Julie.
Good afternoon. I'm Julie Blyle. I'm the Executive Director of AFSCME Council 5. Our labor union represents more than 43,000 workers in the state, local government, nonprofit service throughout the state of Minnesota. I've worked alongside our members in public safety who work in state and local government for nearly 30 years, since 1994, in working to get a ban on private prisons passed in our state, and our members are excited that this legislation will be debated this afternoon on the House floor. Special interest groups, corporate-funded lobbyists, and even former United States presidential candidates have fought hard against this ban on an immoral industry, private prisons. But they are no match for our current pro-worker trifecta that leads with Minnesota's values first. Our members believe to the core the services they provide are not for sale and never serve profit motive over public service and public safety. You will hear from several correctional officers who are members of our union. You'll hear them share the horror stories at private prisons in facilities that have been experienced in working for what was then called the Corrections Corporation of America. After our union, the labor movement and the community allies exposed the immoral business practices of profiting off the incarceration of human beings, and they went through a rebranding. They are now called Core Civic, but don't be fooled. They have doubled down on their immoral business practices, lack of investments in their staff and offender programming, lobbying lawmakers across the country to create new, open, arbitrary and laws that lock up more human beings for longer periods of time so they can increase their corporate profits and their bottom lines that benefit their shareholders. Minnesotans value public service workers in state and local government services who put public safety above all else, the most important, public safety above all else. Our union members have no other motive than to protect the public safety and ensure the safety and security of our correctional and secure facilities are in a place that can aid in the lowering of recidivism and prison reentry. Our union members take pride in their essential work on behalf of every Minnesotan. Our union would be remiss if we did not mention the numerous attacks our correctional officers have experienced across the state, most notable in the last few weeks, but has been a constant and a dangerous issue for many years and must be addressed. We condemn these attacks and will continue to work tirelessly with lawmakers to increase safe staffing in every facility and workplace and ensure our members are truly heard and their ideas are valued. In our public system of corrections, we and the public can be made very aware of these assaults on staff in our facilities, unlike the countless times when Core Civic seemingly hid assaults on their staff and under the rug in order to maintain their corporate reputation and their goal of increasing their profit margin. In our public system of corrections, we can fight for safe staffing and more funding, such as what Governor Walz's budget proposal is to ensure safe staffing. Meanwhile, private prison corporations have ulterior motives and foundational corporate business practices that encourage hiding the facts from our union. As workers' lawful exclusive representative, lawmakers who provide critical oversight and the public are well aware. Private prison corporations are immoral. They must be banned. We sincerely thank Representative Dan Wolgamott, Speaker Melissa Hortman, as well as the Senate author, Senator Omo Verbraten, for their steadfast support of public service workers in our corrections and secure facilities and public safety generally, and for carrying this important legislation that lives up to the values of Minnesotans. We also want to thank and highlight that Speaker Hortman and her leadership for the swift passage of the bill that's coming up on the floor this afternoon, because it's literally been decades of work that has taken to bring this forward, and their leadership will put it through the House of Representatives today. We also would be remiss if we did not mention Senator Ron Latz, former Representative Ryan Winkler, and former Representative Deb Hillstrom, amongst others, who have worked over the years to carry the torch for this important piece of legislation. We stand behind this legislative trifecta that is leading with herd determination and grit in order to protect workers, fully fund services, and improve the lives of our neighbors in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Vars. I'm the Vice President, AFSCME Local 915 Oak Park Heights Correctional Facility. I'm also President of the Correction Policy Committee, which oversees 2,000 correctional officers across the state of Minnesota. As public service workers, the #1 priority is public safety. Private prison corporations does not put public safety first. They put profit first. In our profession, we take pride in the public's keeping the public safe, and we frown upon the moral, unethical, disgusting practices of private prisons in our industry. In our profession, training is critical. Private corporations do not train their people properly, and they put the money first and the training second. Private prisons puts their shareholders first, their staff last. As a correction officer, I stand with my fellow brothers and sisters in our line of work and all public safety workers to say our profession is not for sale. No human should ever be exploited for the corporate profit motivated. More than 80 of our union correction officers were down at the Capitol a few weeks ago talking about this and other priorities. The bill passed the House Public Safety Committee and the legislation was voted on as standalone bill on the House floor today. We call on legislative to pass the ban on private prisons in Minnesota and for Governor Walz to sign it into law. AFSCME correctional officers have been leading this effort for many years, and Minnesota must assure that the out-of-state private prison companies will never descend upon the state to turn Minnesota into a commodity for their own selfish gain. Again and again, I hear from my fellow brothers and sisters who have worked in private prisons, not just at Prairie Correctional Facility, but other ones across the country, that there are worms in food, lack of training, the conditions of properly being heated and also air conditioned, and also that there are no programs for offenders. Because of this, we would like to see the private prison to pass, and I thank you all.
And I'll just say a few words in closing. I think that the story has been well told by the others who spoke before me, but public servants put public safety first. Corporations are required to, in their bylaws, prioritize profits for their shareholders. What we want is a criminal justice system that prepares folks for reentry and keeps the community safe. The obligation of our public servants is to the public, not to shareholders and not to a profit motive. So I'm really, really proud of the work that State Representative Dan Wolgamott has done to move this bill through very quickly. Here we are, still just, it's barely spring. There's a lot of snow outside, but we are ready to pass this bill in the Minnesota House of Representatives, send it to the Minnesota Senate so that they can pass it as well, and put it on Governor Tim Walz's desk, where I am certain he will sign it. So thank you for being here, and I'll turn the questions over to the author of the bill.
What is the status of the, I'm sorry, I missed the first 9 minutes. What is the status of the Appleton facility? And that is the last one in state that was closed?
That's right. So the what's known as the Prairie Correctional Facility, which is owned by CoreCivic, has been defunct for about 12, 13 years. It hasn't housed any inmates since 2020. But they still are in possession of that facility. They've been paying property taxes on it. As recently as 2020, they have made a significant repair to their roof. So that's why we're bringing this legislation forward. We want to make clear that our corrections officers, our public safety is not for sale. It's not for profit. It's for the protection of the workers. It's for better public safety outcomes. And that's why we're bringing this bill forward to ban private prisons in Minnesota.
Are you aware of any litigation from the owners of that facility?
Yes, I don't have any of the specific litigations in front of me, but just Google CoreCivic lawsuit and you'll find, actually there is one that I just read about this morning that's happening in Tennessee where an inmate died and the family is suing CoreCivic because they believe there was maltreatment and that they didn't follow the procedures, and that resulted in the death of their family member. So that's one of many things happening in other CoreCivic-owned facilities throughout the country, and we do not want that here in Minnesota. All right, well, with that, once again, I want to thank everyone for being here today to be part of this conversation about the vote that's coming up on House File 1200. I want to thank everyone who is standing with me here today. I also want to give a shout out to the former author of this bill, our former House Majority Leader Ryan Winkler, for his hard work over the years, both in getting this legislation as far as it's gotten, but then outside of the legislature, shining light on the horrific things happening in private prisons and the good work that's being done by our public workers. And in closing, I want to thank our correctional officers and those who are involved in programming throughout the state of Minnesota. It is one of the most difficult jobs in our state, but it is core to keeping our state safe. And we thank them and their families for their sacrifices, and I look forward to a successful vote on passing House File 1200 this afternoon. Thank you all very much.